For those of you that have not seen Eminence in Shadow, I do highly recommend it. If you are into parody, to a lot of dumb shit happening, people being edgy, and it's like the show taking itself too seriously and it being self-aware that it's taking itself too seriously. You've seen season 1? I have also only seen season 1. I hope this doesn't get into spoilers for season 2, but we're here for it. I'm gonna binge the fuck out of season 2 once it's done. I feel like this is a show that I may not be able to watch weekly, but I love watching I love watching it, like binging it. It's so fun. It's such a fun show. All right, ready? Let's watch.
Every kid wants to be a hero, or maybe a villain, in case the world hasn't been nice enough to you. But every once in a while, there's some goofy nutjob who's too self-absorbed in their own power fantasies to care about what's cool and what's not. This is the story of one such individual. It all starts with the introduction of a gorgeous girl named Akane. She wakes up and gets ready, then leaves for...
Quite literally the opposite of main character syndrome. He has, and I shit you not, side character syndrome, which arguably, because of the events happening here and some of the shit that goes down, arguably worse than main character syndrome.
School in her land.
I haven't seen it.
That's right, you know.
Well, this is a summary of it. Hopefully you enjoy it.
Akane is an actress on top of being a high school student. As you can imagine, everyone loves her sweet smile and kind persona. The boys would do anything for her. She seems beautiful both inside and out.
Yes.
However, there's still one student in the entire school who doesn't worship her. His name is Minoru Kageno, and for the most part, he's indifferent to everyone, including Akane. He doesn't even know her name, despite the fact that she sits right next to him in class. Because of this, he starts living in her head rent-free. Okay, so back to Akane, and why she tries so hard to make people like her. It's because of a tragic event that happened back when she first started out in the showbiz industry. She was just a middle school girl at that time. Unfortunately, a stalker abducted her and then took her to his place. He was going to force himself upon her when fortunately she was saved. But, you know, PTSD is a thing. It messed with her psyche so much that she ended up developing this fake persona of a perfect girl so that everyone likes her, be it a teacher, a student, or anyone else. Though, as fate would have it, her driver's still not here to pick her up, which leaves her with no choice but to walk on foot. The problem is that this gives her bad vibes, because she has literally never walked alone since that incident in middle school. Besides, what she doesn't know is that her driver was beaten to death by some local gangsters. They were waiting for her, of course. When she enters an empty street, they use a handkerchief to knock her out and then take her to an empty warehouse. But just as her consciousness is fading away, she notices a person standing in the distance. It's Kageno, and he's smiling. Akane then wakes up in a warehouse, scared and confused. The gangsters want money from her parents, but one of them tries to have his way with her. This gives our girl extreme flashbacks of the stalker incident and completely petrifies her. But right then, at that very moment, someone breaks into the warehouse from the glass ceiling.
This is where it begins.
As the stylish ruffian slayer. He violates this man's face. This causes the other guy to step in, and unlike the garbage he had just taken out,
that's our boy!
Ruthlessly strong. He's an ex-military officer, and even more than that, he has a kink for violence. He enjoys it. But this meant nothing in front of the stylish Russian slayer. The slayer does him so bad that it cures the man's fetish for violence. Even when the officer can't physically go on any longer, the slayer doesn't stop. He changes the very structure of the officer's face using crowbars. I would not recommend watching this scene with kids around.
No.
Anyway, Akane is freed. The Russian slayer tells her to be careful and then excuses himself. All is well that ends well, because Akane's parents use their power to neatly cover everything up.
But
of course, she hasn't forgotten.
But of course, the petrified girl is also very rich and has very powerful family members to be able to cover any incidents of this that would absolutely make, like, headlining news.
About the Russian slayer and wonders who he is. And the next day at school, Kageno leaves her speechless by actually remembering her name. Now, if this was your usual psychological drama type of anime, this would have been the start of yet another complicated relationship. But it's not.
Nope!
It's a sweet isekai. Kageno dies an NPC death, and everyone forgets about him. Though this is good, because he's now on his way to the fantasy land on the isekai.
No. They missed a very important detail. It wasn't just the NPC death of getting hit by a truck. No, homie tried to do it. Homie pulled a page straight out of the prologue of That Time I Got Isekai'd by a truck. That time I got isekai'd to another world with my truck. It pulled a picture straight out of it where the fucking weebs of the earth would literally scream and try to get, like, throw themselves in front of trucks to get isekai'd for the idea of getting reincarnated into a better life. Our boy over here, literally the scene of him dying is one of the funniest moments in the Eminence in Shadow. Because, like, not only does he die an NPC's death and everybody forgets about him, homie goes out in the most weeb way possible, screaming, magic! And it's everything, honestly. It's everything, and I love it. I'm obsessed. It's so funny. It is so funny. Also, Red, I saw you mention something about I'm in love with the villainess, and I need season 2 for that as well.
Express. This is the point of the story where we get more context about Kageno. You see, for as long as he can remember, Kageno wanted to be a secret hero. Honestly, a lot of kids do, but while others eventually buy into the modern day nonsense, he never did. At school, he played the role of a background character in school, but during the night, he was a menace who went around town and annihilated gangs.
Again, the side character syndrome and main character god complex meshed into one weeb.
One after another, but that was it. Yeah, he exerted a stupid amount of effort into learning martial arts and various other survival skills. Thanks to that, he can kick some local gang ass, but that'll be his limit. He'll never be able to fight armed men, and even if he somehow does manage to win, he can be squashed with a nuke. That's right, he just used to be an ordinary human. But after getting killed by Truck-kun, Kageno finds himself in the arms of a beautiful, noble lady. He has been reborn in a noble family as Sid Kageno. Time continues to pass.
How he defines his strength and weaknesses, I love it. Oh, I know, isn't it fucking fantastic?
As Sid gradually begins to get accustomed to this new world, he decides to keep his past life a secret.
Are we talking about Sid?
And
Yeah, we are!
Crazy martial arts and other physical tricks he learned back when he used to hunt biker gangs. He also has an older sister. Her name is Claire, and unlike him, who's making sure to stay out of the spotlight, she's praised by everyone for her good abilities and work ethic. Good. That's just the way Sid likes it. Now, believe it or not, this man actually continues his nighttime routine. Even after death, he still goes out and hunts bandits for one.
Yeah.
One day he finds an ugly caged creature. It's obvious that the creature is under some cursed spell. Sid tries a bunch of things and actually succeeds in removing the curse from this unpleasant creature. You can probably imagine my surprise when it turns out to be a stunning, blonde elf.
Alpha, my queen!
She has a memory loss, though. Sid sees this as the perfect chance to make her his subordinate. He starts telling her the story of some ancient heroes who fought against demons.
Bro,
he affirms that she's a descendant of those heroes, and now the demons are after her. Indeed, he pulls this story out of thin air, but it was authentic enough to convince her. Her name is Alpha, and just like that, the two of them kickstart a secret organization called Shadow Garden. They only have one goal, and that is to stop the demon cult from resurrecting the demon king, Diabolos. Sid was enjoying this a little too much. 3 years passed by.
Which, the name, by the way, that he unintentionally, like, I don't know if he willed it into existence or just had, like, fucking Kazuma levels of luck. He got that off of a hot sauce bottle. Like, homie was dead ass, like, I'm like making this shit up as on the fly as he goes, and pulled that out of a hot sauce bottle. The name of the cult. Like, what? Love Alpha, I'd let them squish me. No, same. You know, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I have to be honest with you. Out of all the Shadow girls, it's Beta with glasses for me, and Gamma, the clumsy queen. I think it's Gamma who's the clumsy one. I adore them. Delta is queen. Delta, oh my god, Delta is floof. It's either Alpha or Delta for me. I love Beta. Just like I don't know what it is. She's quirky and she's adorable and she's also like competitive as fuck and I love her. I also love the clumsy queen. Like, she's just so cute. And also she kind of like me for real. I trip over everything.
In the blink of an eye, and it's about time for Sid's brilliant sister to leave for the academy. As fate would have it, she disappears.
Zeta is mommy, though.
Rather, she's abducted by someone. In wake of this, Alpha shows up. She has recruited a few more girls in the past 3 years and formed up a team called Shadow 7. They immediately commenced the search to find Sid's sister and also assert that it was the cult of the demons who kidnapped her. The cult believes that Claire is actually a descendant of the heroes, so their plan is to use her body to revive the great demon king Diabolos.
I'm on my way.
Alpha and the others are telling the truth. As crazy as it may seem, that story that Sid pulled out of nothing is the truth. With glasses. The cult is real. It is indeed trying to revive Diabolos, and yes, it was them who kidnapped his sister. instructor. However, Sid just thinks that these girls are
True, but
playing
visually,
along, and so he plays along some more. Together with them, he attacks their hideout. Shadow Garden invades and gets rid of them. The ruckus allows Claire to escape as well, and so she does. She has no idea that it was her little brother who saved her, but at
Send me
least she
straight
made
to
it back
Delta?
home. Following
Listen, I don't know why everybody tries to tell me like where to send them. I'm going to tell you guys right now the same thing that I've told you guys from the beginning. I am only part 1 of the isekai process. I send you into the next into like the spot where, you know, how there's usually a god or a goddess, and then you end up, it's basically like the purgatory, so to speak, where you're in the meeting place with a god or goddess that will then do the part of sending you to the next life. I am part 1. I don't send you anywhere. It's up to the god or le goddess. Okay, there we go. A lot of us are part 2. Exactly. A lot of VTubers are part 2. You gotta ask them where to send you. You just gotta tell me that you want to go to another life, and then I'm like, all right, cool, my job's easy. Got it.
this, Claire leaves for the academy. Sid is excited to eventually leave too, but it'll take 2 more years before he's 15 and
Can you
old
just hit
enough
me
to
and not
enter the
send me
Midgar
anywhere?
Academy.
Oh.
Sadly, Alpha then reveals that the girls will have to leave as well so that they can expand their operations, considering how the Cult of Diabolos is a global organization. Sid still thinks it's not real. He also wonders if the girls have realized that it was all just a story he came up with. This makes him wonder if they're now using the organization as an excuse to part ways and be free. Be that as it may, he bids them farewell. And the flow of
but of
time
course.
continues. Sid turns 15 and is finally on his way to enter the academy. His plan is to play the NPC role, so he makes sure to look for the other 2 guys who feel the most average when making friends. But here's where it takes a sharp turn.
Oh my
Like
God,
every
yes!
school ever, there's always that one popular girl that every guy has a crush on.
Of course.
But she just takes their soul and leaves them permanently scarred for life. In this case, her name is Alexia, and she's from the royal family. Okay, so what happens is Sid doesn't do well on a test. His friends go tell him to ask Alexia out. He's gonna get rejected, that goes without saying, but it still sounds like a fun little date. Sid humors
Of
them.
course.
He later walks up to her, then confesses his love in the most ordinary way possible. There's literally no spark of authenticity whatsoever.
Not at
The
all.
reason Sid did this is because he wants to continue playing a background character. But somehow, the stars align, and the sun swallows the moon because she accepts his confession. Looks like she had been waiting for someone like him. When they're alone, she shares her story, how she's the fiancé of their royal fencing instructor. In many ways, her fiancé is high up in
that's
social
right, the fencing
hierarchy.
stuff.
He's an elite, and if one is thinking logically, she shouldn't have a reason to not be with him. However, she doesn't want to marry him, not even close. The guy acts too perfect, which gives her bad vibes, and so she wants Sid to be her boyfriend for the time being. It's for the sake of getting away from her fiancé. Sid realizes that it'll be more trouble
It's giving like pretend to date me kind of stuff. Like that's like middle school shit, and it's really, really humorous.
than it's worth.
She's not oblivious. She knows what's up.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
in their class, which is why she declines.
She's such a
But
good character.
when she offers
No.
him some money,
No, genuinely, she's so good. I'm also remembering a certain scene between her and the redhead. My community and I had a fun time watching that episode. We rewatched a certain part multiple times.
our boy turns
Dog!
into a little puppy dog. That's right, money is everything, and he definitely needs some of that.
Homie actually goes "Woof!" in that moment, and it's fucking hilarious. The redhead Iris, right? I think it's Iris. I'm really bad with names.
To run his secret intelligence organization. From this point forward, Alexia and Sid start spending time together, but during their
2 trucks having sex. My muscles, involuntarily flex.
sword training, when she reveals how she's not very good at it, and Sid reassures her that she is good, she states that her sister told her the same thing. Something about what Sid said pissed her off. She left for the day, and didn't return. Looks like she went missing, because the next thing you know, Sid gets arrested, since, he was the last person with her before she disappeared. But Sid doesn't have anything to do with her disappearance.
Correct.
In actuality, she was taken by, you guessed it, the cult. The next morning, we see some mad scientist having a field day sucking her blood. He believes that her blood has some useful demonic DNA.
Let's go,
so he's
cult!
trying to confirm his theory. Sid, on the other hand, is getting tortured by the academic knights. They're being as aggressive as possible to try to make him spill the beans, and yes, they're enjoying it as well because, torture people, torture.
Yay!
Torture is supposed to hurt, so Sid acts like he's hurting.
Torture!
But little do they know, this level of pain is nothing to him. He's already developed an inhumane level of pain tolerance. After about 5 days, Alexia's older sister, Princess Iris, orders them to release the guy.
God damn, he
He's
got
innocent
cheeks!
after all. Following this, Alpha shows up in his room with some big news. She shares the progress their organization has made, how they're actively observing the cult, how this is relevant to Alexia's disappearance, and Sid's glad that Alpha is still playing along with their little story.
But of course.
There was no time to waste, though. They had to go save Alexia, and fast. Alpha prepares a group of 114 soldiers, and so the rescue operation commences.
Okay, but like, Alpha's a giga chad for that. Like, hello. Like, Sid this entire time was like, oh, they probably all just wanted to, you know, get away from me because, like, I'm terrible. They're using the organization as an excuse. No. The organization has been very much so active and very much so growing. And Sid's about to be confronted with the way that they confront Sid with all of this, and like the way that he receives all the information is like his inner monologue versus his actual verbal dialogue is so counterintuitive. It's so funny. It's so funny.
On their way, Sid finds those knights who enjoyed torturing him, and so he kills them. No remorse or guilt whatsoever. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our noble protagonist. Going back to the cell where Alexia is locked up, that mad scientist then injects Alexia's blood into a mutant girl. It doesn't go as planned because the mutant transforms into a rogue demon and kills said scientist. Alexia sees this as her chance to escape, but ends up coming across her fiancé. Plot twist moment. That means the guy that gave Alexia to the cult was none other than her fiancé. His goal was to become
Gasp! It's almost like she called it. He's up to no good. I think he's acting a little too perfect. Absolutely everybody saw this one coming. Oh yeah. Not a soul was surprised. There was not a single gasp in the audience when this scene happened.
Become a member of the Knights of the Rounds, and Alexia's blood seemed to be the price. Without thinking, Alexia attacks him, but considering what she had to endure because of the mad scientist, she was too exhausted to do anything. Lucky for her, a man appears from the shadows.
Don't bet
It's
my ass.
The Shadow. Or at least that's what Sid introduces himself as. The fraud fiancé couldn't help but realize that the one who's been imposing them all this time, the Shadow, is this man. He goes on to reveal himself to be one of the most important members of the cult, and very soon he'll become the 12th seat of the Rounds. Meanwhile, the mutant monster girl is causing chaos and havoc all around the city. Princess Iris confronts her, but no matter how hard she tries to attack or defeat her, the monster girl just keeps regenerating. Alpha soon shows up, introduces herself as a member of Shadow Garden, rids the monster girl from her suffering by helping her revert back to her human self.
Badass women doing badass women things.
Going back to Sid, he's overpowering the fiancé using his impeccable sword skills. Alexia hasn't quite realized that he is Sid, but still, she's impressed by his sword skills nonetheless. As a last resort, the fiancé consumes some demon pills to awaken and get stronger, but Sid just nukes him out.
This is only my final form! This isn't even my you've only witnessed 75% of my power.
Out of existence along with the surroundings. Literally. When everything goes back to normal,
I am atomic!
Classic.
Alexia has acquired a newfound inspiration to master her own sword style. This is in the wake of seeing the Shadow nuke the living daylights out of her fiancé. She also recalls how Sid complimented her sword style, and well, she offers him the privilege of being her real boyfriend. He declines, but then gets punished for it by Alexia. She goes hardcore and leaves behind a lot of mess while she was punishing Sid. As for the Shadow Garden, they rejoice because of how powerful Shadow was in this recent incident.
The question is,
but their
which one
attention
would
soon
I
shifts
do?
when they realize how another group is committing crimes while posing as Shadow Garden. Princess Iris, on the other hand, is curious about both the Cult of Diablos and the Shadow Garden. Of course she is. Her sister's fiancé turned out to be a member of the cult after all.
But of course.
And so she forms an investigation team. Then there's Sid. He survived Alexia's onslaught. He's walking away, covered in blood, when he comes across a pink-haired cutie named Sherry. And she is like the most brilliant mind in the kingdom.
Yep.
She's then asked by Iris if she can decipher a strange artifact they found that belongs to the cult. Sid meets his two friends. Their names are Poe and Skell, by the way, and the three of them go to a place to get some chocolate, which they're then going to use to get girls. A flawless plan, if I must say so myself. Though it soon turns out that the one who runs the
nothing
store
could
is
go
Gamma,
wrong.
a girl from the Shadow 7 squad.
Gamma, my
To
queen!
secure more funding for their organization. Sid is obviously impressed and applauds Gamma's dedication to play along. Little does he know that this is just one of these stores. He had stores in every city around the world, and is quite literally among the wealthiest people alive. No
Yeah!
kidding. Gamma introduces Sid to a new member
Man's
named
got
Yu.
bag!
She's Gamma's personal assistant. Sid appreciates it, then asks Gamma for 3 cheap chocolates. Of course, she gives him the most expensive ones, but Sid being Sid, he laughs with Gamma and sneakily steals a silver coin. Then, as they're on their way home, Danger sees them in the face. Sid notices that it's Alpha fighting a bunch of suspicious people, but he needed to shake off his 2 friends before intervening himself. He just tells them he's got to go take a poop, and he needs to do it
But of course.
right away.
Where
The two
else
of them
would you be?
understand where he's coming from. They applaud his manhood and affirm that no matter what happens, they'll never forget about him. Anyway, he saves
Never.
Alexia by killing the ones who were overpowering her. He takes one of them as hostage and tells New to interrogate them. He then has a conversation with Alexia where she explains the fake Shadow Garden and how it's been killing people using their name. Alexia reassures Sid that the real Shadow 7 has done nothing wrong. Later,
Yo.
Sid's friends use the chocolates to get girls. Skell gets wrecked by the girl's fiancé, while Poe is labeled a stalker and then arrested. Sid also wonders if
Bro, they you opened the backpack on this channel? I did. And I have to say, using the chocolate to get the girls was genuinely some very, very, very funny moments. Very much so, I think, overlooked a little bit. But I know that this is a quick synopsis of the entirety of the series, and I completely understand.
he should give the chocolates to anyone. Coincidentally, he comes across Sherry and casually gives it to her. Well, Sherry's adoptive father is the vice principal. He breaks the news to his silly daughter that the chocolates are probably a love confession and that she should give Sid an answer. Moving on, New explains that the person she interrogated was a brainwashed orphan. The cult uses drugs and magic to turn such people into foot soldiers. There's another one named Rex, who's been lurking around the city. So when Sid starts talking about the sword tournament that's about to happen at his academy and how his friends see this as an opportunity to impress girls, New
But of
takes
course.
his words out of context and mistakenly deduces that Sid is going to deal with Rex. The sword fighting festival takes place and Sid ends up fighting Princess Rosé, the student council president. He wasn't going to give himself
yeah,
away,
the student
which is why
council
he needs to
president, I
pretend to get
forgot about
injured
her.
several times until finally the referee declares his loss. The princess is still kind of impressed with his zeal, though.
Dude!
Then there's Sherry.
Dude!
She's been overthinking the chocolate.
Homie got his ass beat to a pulp in this.
Everyone is like I think everybody in my chat when we were watching this together before was like, oh yeah, homie's about to like show up, but we forget. Remember, chat, remember, he doesn't have just main character syndrome. He doesn't just have a god complex. He has a side / background character syndrome. Like he wants to be in the background. So this guy literally gets his ass clapped in broad daylight in front of his entire school to be like, guys, I am nobody. You definitely know that I am not a strong fighter. I could definitely not kick every single person in this school's ass. So he literally just takes a beating until he's a bloody fucking pulp. And the ref literally, and they showed it in the screen cap, the ref tackles Sid to be like, this is done. You can't take anymore. It's so fun. It's so funny. It's so funny. You guys have to watch this show.
Lately and ends up telling Sid that they should start by being friends. But believe me as I say this, Sid doesn't even remember her name. She then also asks Alexia about it, just what her relationship is with Sid. Alexia states that their relationship was fake, and, well, it was, since Sid declined when she genuinely wanted to be his girlfriend.
This is valid.
Sherry rejoices. While Alexia is upset to see another girl showing so much interest in someone who's supposed to be her boyfriend, 5 days later, when Sid shows up at school, Princess Rosé
Is it on Crunchyroll?
Oriana
I believe
tells him about
so.
the vacant
I think
seat
it
at the
still is
student
on
council.
Crunchyroll.
But Sid's attention is swayed when someone
also
puts a
on Hulu.
barrier around their school. He's the only one who notices, and it appears he can no longer use magic. Then some sketchy men show up in the academy, claim that they're
This chat, do you guys remember in the beginning of this where I was talking about why I think that background character syndrome would be worse than main character syndrome? It's this scene. It's this scene. His ideals and his mindset is so fucked up in this scene. It's so funny, but goddamn, this person would be insufferable in real life.
They're from the Shadow Garden and declare that it's a takeover. Princess Rosé tries to hold them off, but because she couldn't use magic, she never stood a chance. Her sword is broken, and she's injured to the point where near death is in sight, but just before they're about to land a finishing blow, Sid jumps in and takes the attack himself. Cloaked in blood, he falls onto the ground. In his head, he thought that saving a girl while fighting terrorists is a really cool and heroic thing to do, but Rose, being a sweet maiden, gets the impression that he loves her. But he's dead, so there's that. The other students go to the auditorium, and when no one's looking, Sid restarts his heart using magic. Then there's the soldier who Newt talked about. She invades Sherry's room and attempts to take the relic from her, but fortunately, Princess Iris's Crimson Knights help her to get away.
Yay!
Sid, on the other hand, is having a good time killing all these imposters.
No. You know why he's killing the imposters?
No. Not only is he killing the imposters, he's killing the imposters because, I shit you not, they failed the drip check. One of the lines that he says before he starts murking everybody is, "Wow, how dare you wear... You know that you're not supposed to wear dark and brooding clothing in the middle of the day? You guys are morons." I mean, I'm obviously paraphrasing here, but like, he's dead ass, like, just mad that they're wearing black and dark clothing, not at night. He's like, clearly, if you're wearing black clothes in the middle of the night, it is so much easier to not stand out and blah, blah, blah. Like, how dare you do that? Like, homie literally marks an entire army or like an entire group of people just because they failed the drip check. And they're all wearing dark brooding clothing in the middle of the day. Like, what a fucking weeb! I love it. I love this show. I love this show. This is what I mean by the show takes itself way too seriously to the point that it's self-aware that it's not a serious show. And I love it. It's genius. It's genius, I tell you.
He also protects Sherry. Sherry then observes the relic, which caused the barrier. She explains that it's the Eye of Avarice. It'll keep absorbing magic until it explodes and takes everyone with it. Fortunately, the relic Sherry was asked to research is the Eye's control unit. So she starts trying to do something about it, and Sid also helps her get the stuff she requires. Subsequently, that Rex guy from before talks to the mastermind
The vibe check did not
behind
get
all
past
of
him. He
this.
made sure they
The
knew
man
it. Oh,
referred
fuck
to
yeah,
as
they
Gaunt
did.
Knight.
They knew it,
Rex
all right.
mentions that the men
They
are
couldn't
getting
live
killed
long
left
enough
and right,
to
and so
understand
Gaunt
what they
wonders
were
if the
doing.
real
No.
Shadow Garden is after them. His goal is to become a member of the Knights once again, but Sid then kills Rex. New is around as well, and guess what? Only one of the Crimson Knights survives. The one who survives turns out to be New's ex. She got hit by a truck of emotions and wonders if it's about time she kills the guy and moves on. But thanks to Sid's orders to not do anything until Sherry has it all figured out, New stops and she lets the guy live as well. Finally, Sherry is done with the control relic. It takes off the barrier, which means that they're now free to use magic as much as they want.
Yay,
Sid takes on his
magic!
shadow disguise and tells his girls to slaughter the terrorists. They are ruthless. Princess Iris still believes that the Shadow Garden is their real enemy. Now prepare yourself for another plot twist, because the leader of the fake Shadow Garden and the mastermind behind this attack on the Academy is none other than Sherry's adoptive father, the vice principal. Gaunt Knight is just a
This is another plot twist that everybody could see coming because of how predictable. The father, up until this point, or the adopted father up until this point, always gave off sauce vibes. And it's really, really fucking funny how blatantly obvious they make it. They make him seem like they make his character seem overtly creepy or like constantly puzzled, like he's up to something.
Pseudonym. His real name is, of course, Ruslan. Sid finds him burning all of Sherry's research, and it sort of snowballs into Ruslan telling Sid his story. He states that he used to be a master swordsman who showed great promise, but then an illness nerfed him. Since then, he put his faith into the Eye. He saw it as the only way to get his health back in order. This is why he ended up with Sherry's mother, who was basically researching the Eye. But the man killed her when she didn't want to continue the research, and then turned Sherry into his pawn so that the research could go on. However, now that everything is in order, and Sherry has combined both the Eye and the relic, Ruslan is able to use it to get back what he had once lost. But who cares? Sid is still a way better swordsman anyway. Ruslan realizes that this is the end for him, so he boasts about how he tarnished the Shadow Garden name, but Sid just kills him. He couldn't care less. Sherry shows up and starts crying because
Like a
goddamn hero.
Her father was, well, brutally slayed. Sid knows that being an anti-hero means you safeguard people from the truth, and so he chooses to not say anything about Rosalind. But for what it's worth, Shadow is wanted for mass murder, arson, kidnapping, and robbery. He's the #1 enemy to the kingdom. Shadow embraces this, though. Gamma later tells Alpha that he is fully willing to take on the remorse of the masses. Alpha admires his resolve and realizes that they must redecide their approach. As for Sherry, she bids Sid farewell and goes abroad to study something. When Sid asks about what she's going to study, she replies that it's a secret. Well, that gives Sid some bad vibes.
It's a
Next up, we have
secret!
the trip to Lindworm. Sid is asked by Alpha to visit this sacred city. Alexia and her sister Iris also plan on visiting the place. In preparation, they go to one of Sid's department stores where Alexia buys a certain kind of underwear with the intention of seducing a certain man.
Bro,
This is it. This is the scene that my community and I watched over and over again. Goddamn.
I wonder where this is going. Anyway, about Sid's supposed death. He pretended to miraculously
Oh, it is so incredibly wonderful. I love women. In case you didn't know, I love when women, when women, me when women. You ever had a dream that you wish you weren't, you eat, you wish you want, you eat, you wish you were, so that so you could do anything? Yeah, that's me when women
survive. Well, Rose is glad that Sid is still alive and she wants to be his lover too. She's still under the impression that he saved her because he was in love with her, so she ends up tagging along with Sid to Lindworm. During their secret little trip, Rose explains what he'll have to do to get her father's approval for marriage, but Sid somehow concludes that she's trying to convert him to the local religion. Following this, Sid comes across Beta. She was using her alternate persona as the author.
Beta with glasses! God damn, she's so cute! I love her! Look at her! Oh my god, what a precious little bean.
Named Natsume. She's basically published stories that Sid shared with her and became insanely successful. We're talking about Cinderella, Romeo and Juliet, and Star Wars. Sid starts getting excited when Beta passes him a mission briefing that is coded in ancient language. He's still under the impression that all of this is roleplay. Rose is kind of confused. She wonders if Sid is obsessed with things like history and languages. Meanwhile, there is a cultist who invades the Church of Beatrix and kills the Archbishop. Epsilon gets there and takes out one of the perpetrators, but the murderer himself escapes. In the wake of this, Sid relays that he'll be moving on his own accord. Moving on, the Beatrix trial takes place, but no one is worthy enough for the spirit of the heroes to manifest and duel them. The event was looking ultimately uninteresting at this point, but out of nowhere, Sid is announced as the next challenger. As it turns out, Rose registered him in order to show his father that this man is truly worthy of being her husband. Sid didn't want to give anything away to the masses, so instead of going with his real identity, he crashes the event disguised as Shadow. And for once, a spirit does manifest.
Again, like a goddamn hero. Although, inconsistency notice! Inconsistency notice! Alert the sirens! Woo woo wee woo wee woo. Hang on, wait a second. It's broad daylight. You failed the drip check, Shadow. However, I think the proper response here, in terms of the drip being in broad daylight, is the alternative to this would have been to show up and reveal his power as his background character ulterior. So there is an exception, and yes, it is a tournament arc. So therefore, he does not have to wear. He doesn't. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. However, it is an inconsistency thing. There are exceptions to the rules. However, I did want to call him out on this one because he did. Remember, he did murk an entire terrorist group just because they failed the drip check, not because they were tarnishing his own name. The clothes were more important than the name of Shadow Garden at that time because, again, reminder, he still thinks all of this is fake.
Manifest in order to challenge him. Much to everyone's surprise, it's Aurora, the strongest witch in history. The acting archbishop named Nelson comments that Shadow is unlucky to go up against her, considering how she once plunged the world into chaos. But Alexia sees the situation differently. She deduces that if Shadow's presence was enough to manifest Aurora, then he may very well be the strongest man on the planet right now. Not to mention, Aurora was hardly a challenge for him. He casually defeats her and leaves all disappointed. The Shadow Girls are once again impressed by their leader. Also, because of Shadow's power, the barrier around the event crumbles and a magic door appears in the arena. Shadow tries to ignore the door, but when it starts following him, he takes the plunge and enters it. Though just as he enters, another door opens in the arena. This gives Nelson nightmares and he asks the guards to evacuate everyone, but the
Nightmare, nightmare, nightmare!
shadow girls appear, tell Alexia and Rose to not try anything funny and to enter the gate. Epsilon captures Nelson and enters too. At this point, Alexia and Rose follow along as well. They fall right in front of Alpha and the others. Alexia states that she tripped and fell into the gate, but Alpha doesn't care. She just starts telling the story. She explains that this is where the hero Oliver severed Diablos' left arm 1,000 years ago, and she happens to be the descendant of that hero. Sid, on the other hand, comes across Aurora. It seems
I'm not gonna lie, that reveal was actually so sick. It was really cool. It was really cool. You guys definitely like need to check this out. Like, a lot of the stuff is very well animated and like very well revealed, even though it's a very serious show. Like, some of the stuff is unironically really cool.
she's been trapped here for
This is
quite
one
a
of those
while,
moments.
and by quite a while, I mean 1,000 years. When Sid frees her from the confinement, she states that this sanctuary is a prison that serves as the storage for the memories of past heroes. And this is where things get a little chaotic. Okay, so they end up destroying the sanctuary. Aurora and the other legends will lose their memories, but what is in those memories? That's the question. They all pass through and begin to gain a perspective on what's been going on throughout the centuries, how the cult used this sanctuary to commit experiments on orphan girls using the blood of Diablos. Most of these girls died, but some became heroes, like Oliver. This also correlates to the demonic pills we've seen at previous points in the story. They were formed using Diablos' arm. It usually produces these pills once every year. It also spits out 12 beads that are capable of granting.
The first time I saw those, I was like, huh, it looks familiar. Oddly familiar. Does anyone want to say what these little red pills look like from another very well-known popular anime? The first time I saw it, it looked Yep, there it is. Looks just like the stones in Full Metal Alchemist. Oh, sorry, apologies. We are on the internet. It is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. You're welcome, Nux.
Limited immortality to the 12 leaders of the cult, otherwise known as the Knights of the Round. Now, Nelson, who was posing as a replacement archbishop, turns out to be the one who created these beads 1,000 years ago. And since the secret is out, he goes full power mode, initiates a multiverse of memories, and starts
Morpheus
fighting
ain't even
everyone
giving us a choice
simultaneously
anymore.
using copies of himself.
No, you don't get a chance anymore. But you do get to be in the Matrix because look, okay, first of all, I just realized I paused this at an angle. Carry on. We gotta carry on.
All of the girls in Shadow Garden used to be these orphan girls who were experimented upon, but Sid cured them of these side effects. They still have their strength, and you bet they're gonna use it on Nelson. Sid and Aurora, on the other hand, reach the very core of the sanctuary,
Nelson.
while Delta displays that she's
Now go
strong
back.
enough to kill hundreds of Nelsons without even using magic. She's a berserker. Going back to the core of the sanctuary,
She's hot as fuck!
it's sealed, and the seal can only be unbroken using a magic sword that was also there. The catch is that you need to be a descendant of the hero to withdraw it, which Sid obviously isn't. The Shadow Girls, on the other hand, teleport out of the sanctuary together with Alexia and Rose. Looks like Epsilon figured out how everything works after going through the cult's research. Nelson is confused, especially since he had just summoned Oliver to fight for him, so he shifts his attention to Sid and makes Oliver fight him instead. Sid is once again disappointed because what he was fighting wasn't really Oliver, but a soulless imitation of this hero. Aurora comments that she'll protect him as a thank you for all the fun she's recently had, but this only furthers Sid's disappointment, because it's impossible for him to lose to begin with. He relaxes himself, let Oliver pierce his heart, but then grins and shows him that one of his eyes has changed. Basically allows Oliver to stab him.
Literally the epitome of I'm not even using 15% of my power. The epitome.
But he made sure that he didn't hit his primary organs, and now that Oliver was in close range, he killed her using his jaw. Sid wasn't done yet, though. He figured out one of the secrets of the sanctuary, how to absorb magic.
Homie fucking actually took a chunk out of her neck vampire style. Actually worse than vampires. Like fucking like The Walking Dead. Yeesh!
And yes, the reason he had trouble with Oliver is because he couldn't use magic. But by concentrating his magic within his eye, he can use it again. Sid just straight up uses magic to unleash an atomic bomb, which reduces Nelson and the sanctuary to nothing. Gone.
Atomic!
Aurora kisses him in those final moments and expresses her hope that one day he'll meet the real Aurora and not just her memories. Following these
Bro
events,
did a Rick
Alexia
Grimes.
and
No,
Rose
for
have
real,
been
for real.
more confused than they have ever been.
Straight
They
out of The
come to
Walking Dead.
conclusion that they'll need their own organization which can go up against both the cult and the Shadow Garden. The only problem is that Natsume has been with them.
Peter, my queen! we have the same glasses now. Like, I love her.
Friendly reminder that she's
Those were
actually
the days.
Beta,
Those were the
disguised as a published author. Natsume agrees that she's willing to join them in creating this secret organization. Very clever of her now, because she can always spy on them.
But
Anyway,
of
ready for
course.
another plot twist. When Alpha goes through the archives of the Sanctuary, she discovers that the true identity of the demon Diablos is none other than Aurora. Shadow Garden ends up buying pretty much the entire city of Madlid under the
What? You're saying that the woman that has been trapped for 1,000 years and didn't get to meet him and they went on this entire journey is actually important to the story and is actually
The villain? Gasp! I could never see that one coming!
sense that they will open shopping centers, but the real goal is to gain access to the oil under the city. How American of them. Alexia and her sister Iris come to the conclusion that the cult and the church are involved with each other, but they lack the political power to do anything about it, and so Iris decides to participate in an upcoming tournament, the Bushin Festival. She'll win and gain some political power. Rose, on the other hand, is puzzled because apparently she's infected by the demonic blood. Now, the Bushin Festival is a big deal, where warriors from all over the world show
Hell
up
yeah, brother.
to devour each other. Sid is intrigued and thinks that it'll be cool if he participates. He'll act weak at first, but then he'll defeat everyone. But he'll need another disguise to pull it off, and so he asks Gamma to use her slime makeup and change his face. He becomes Mundane Man, a knight who lacks both skill
Yo, the Mundane Man arc is fucking priceless.
and status. An exceptional knight named Anne Rose notices him participating. She gives him sincere advice that he better not participate, and another one named Quentin shows up to teach him a lesson before the festival even begins. Mundane Man ends up provoking Quentin by saying that he's at least stronger than him. This enrages Quentin, and he starts beating up said Mundane Man. Anna Rose couldn't help but observe that regardless of the attacks he endured, the Mundane Man still hasn't suffered any injuries. Sid then talks to Skell about who will win, and this is where Skell reveals to him the names of the warriors who are favored heavily to win the whole thing.
But of
They're
course.
Iris, Rose, Anne Rose, Quentin, and a Dark Knight, whose name is unknown. Later in the day, he bumps into Rose. Rose talks about how she became friends with Alexia and Natsume, but then also mentions how her father has already selected someone as her fiancé. That man's name is Perv Asshat, and looks like she'll have to give up on the sword too.
Perv
Sid was still
Asshat.
unaware that this lady
So
wants
fitting.
him to be her husband, so he just casually tells her to follow her heart. Do what would make her happy. The tournament begins. Mundane Man wins the first round without even moving. Everyone is disappointed
Without even
because it looked as though the opponent just cracked, but Anne Rose saw that Mundane Man simply moved
Yes,
way too
Perv Asshat.
fast for the naked eye to see. Going back to the advice Sid gave to Rose. Well, she just stabs Perv Asshat in the balls. There's gonna be consequences because of what happened, but at the very least, Alexia is ready to protect her friend anytime. Natsume calms her down, however, because she's already aware of Rose's whereabouts. Sid then comes across an elf named Beatrix, who looks just like Alpha. She's been looking for her niece. Anyway, back to the tournament. Sid fights a warrior named Goldie. Everyone watches closely, especially Quentin and Anna Rose. They want to know how Mundane Man will handle this one.
Hi, Blue.
Unfortunately, reality is often disappointing because all it takes is a sneeze to knock Goldie unconscious. Meanwhile, Iris has a meeting with Perv Asshat, where she sees that the man wasn't injured at all. Back at the tournament, there is a stunning upset because Mundane Man has defeated one of the fan favorites. He has defeated Quentin.
Woo! Quentin has his head in the ground! Let's go!
What a Chad though. Honestly, homie's jacked when his head being in the ground is enough to support his shoulders stick, like his feet sticking straight up in the air like that. Like, did you see that? Look at this Look at this dude. Dude, Mundane Man is a giga Chad. Like,
At the tournament, there is a stunning upset because Mundane Man
Big
has
giant
defeated
cloud?
one of the fan favorites. He has defeated Quentin.
look at this! Like, look at him! I mean, I know they said defeated and you're not supposed to kill him, but I feel like he might die from that. He very well could die from that.
And is going to fight Anna Rose
Anyway, massive W.
in his next match. Anna Rose, being a sweet girl, tries to assert dominance before the match, but is taken aback when she realizes that Mundane Man has been wearing armor that weighs over a ton, and yet he can move just fine. In fact, he moves too fast for people to follow him. But before the match with Anna Rose, Sid's sister comes to visit him. But he shakes her off by saying that he will also hunt for Rose because the reward is huge. In actuality, he admires Rose's resolve to risk everything for the sake of her happiness. Moving on, Sid hears someone playing piano. It's Epsilon. She reveals that she is posing as a pianist to develop connections throughout the kingdom. Alexia and Natsume, on the other hand, are under the impression that the reason Rose ran away was because Perv is a cultist who's trying to brainwash the king. By the way, Rose's father is the king. Speaking of Rose, she's at her wit's end by this point. The demonic blood is messing her up, and she doesn't want more political unrest in her kingdom, so she decides to just surrender. But then, Eminence in Shadow shows up in the underground. He plays some piano, cures her of the demonic blood, and also gives her some powers. It disappears, just like that. This gives her a newfound determination.
Damn, when they say music heals, this show takes it seriously. So real.
To fight. When the cultists come after her, she kills them all. She also decides that instead of involving Alexia and Natsume,
Title drip.
she'd rather be alone. When he returns home that day, he realizes that his sister has been waiting for him this entire time. She punishes her little brother and then mentions how she's going to be participating in Rose's stead. And so, she wants him to watch her fight from the VIP seating. Sid obliges, and when the time comes, he sits next to Iris in the VIP seating. The two of them talk about the Dark Knight, whose real identity is Beatrix, the elvish war goddess. This is where Sid realizes that she is
I wish that were
actually
me. I
Alpha's
mean, what?
aunt. Anyway,
Hey, listen, same. Sid's sister got it going on.
Listen, hands are just a shorter way of saying chokers. I mean, come on now. I'll take that kind of gripper any day.
when the time comes for the mundane man to
Just
fight
pretty
Anna
necklaces.
Rose, Sid excuses himself and shows up in the arena as Mundane Man. Perv shows up and sits on his seat. Iris is disgusted by him, but he goes on to say that Rose will eventually return and she will marry him. As for the
Perv
fight,
asshat.
Anna Rose tried her best to match Mundane Man's speed, but it was simply impossible. She loses, which means that Mundane Man will be fighting Iris next. Now, Anna Rose might have lost, but she's grateful to Mundane Man for showing her that she still has much to learn. She asks him if he'd like to work for her country, but Mundane Man isn't loyal to a flag or a country, so he refuses. All this time,
Nah.
Sid is getting excited at how he's going to win the
He's got too much side character syndrome for that.
whole thing disguised as Mundane Man and never show that disguise to the world ever again. The Mundane Man will forever remain a legend. But, well, he forgot to watch Claire's match. So, there's that. Which takes us to
Dumbass.
Claire's next match. Sid sits next to Iris and Beatrix to watch his sister fight. Subsequently, we see the perv drugging the living daylights out of Oriana's king. He thinks that Rose will eventually come to save her father, and that's when he'll marry her. Once he's done with Oriana, he also seeks to kill Alexia's father, who's the king of Midgar. The idea is to cause war and havoc. Okay, going back to the tournament, Claire wins again, but Sid wasn't present to see her victory this time either. Instead, he goes down there disguised as Mundane Man to fight Iris. Iris braces herself, but her instincts scream at her, telling her that she will instantly die. Sure enough, Mundane Man one-shots her. I'm beginning to wonder if this isekai is just One Punch Man in disguise. Simultaneously, Rose invades the VIP area together with Shadow Garden.
Mundane! Bro, One Punch Man? Tuh! Yesterday's news. I'm all about the Mundane Man. Look at
She
those
kills-
lifeless eyes. Come on now. You can't get better than that. It's just like, I mean, come on. There is not a sense of hope in his eye. But he can still instantly one-shot everybody. I'm all about Mundane Man. I'm here with it. I'm here with it. The anime of tomorrow.
Her father, the king, in order to end the man's suffering. This messes up the perv. Rose then tries to kill herself to make amends, but the Mundane Man stops her. He kills Perv's men and finally reveals that he was the Eminence in Shadow all along. Seeing him makes Rose recall a memory from the past when a young Sid used to kill bandits at night. This one time he saved her, and in turn also inspired her to pick up the sword. Rose realizes that it's too early for her to die. She escapes for the day. This leaves us with
Yay!
Beatrix and Shadow. Beatrix knows that Shadow is a wanted terrorist as well as her next opponent, so she prepares herself to fight him right there and then. The battle begins. Iris intervenes to help Beatrix since Shadow is obviously too much for her. Then there's Alpha. She finds Rose and asks her to become a member of the Shadow Garden. And Rose goes along. Going back to the battle, Shadow pulls out his most destructive attack, which will instantly vaporize the entire city. Seeing this, Iris and Beatrix are too petrified to know what they should do next, but Shadow just disappears together with the attack before anyone gets hurt. This leaves a bad taste in Princess Iris's mouth, while Beatrix gets a little sad and sentimental because she was unable to find her niece again. The news of
Damn.
Shadow breaks to the entire world. Sherry hears about it in a foreign land and expresses her desire to one day kill him for good. The members of the Shadow Garden continue their activities on making this the best organization on the globe. Alpha takes Rose to a secret
Oh, she crazy. She's got them yandere eyes and everything.
place hidden in the mountains around Sid's childhood village. There she shows Rose the ancient kingdom of Alexandria,
I feel like Alpha is her niece.
Oh, they look nothing alike. What do you mean by that?
which is now the base of operations for the Shadow Garden. Here in Shadow Garden, Rose is given a new label as the Soldier Number 666. She'll have to start again from ground zero. And well, as for the man, the Edgelord, the Shadow, Sid is pleased with how badass the recent role-playing events have been. He's thankful to everyone who's playing along. Apparently, he still has no clue that all of what happened is real. The Shadow Garden, the cult, ancient heroes, Diabolos, all of it is real. We see him playing piano once again, and when he leaves, a soul black feather falls on the keyboard. That is right, folks, Eminence in Shadow has only just begun. And that's the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading a lot of videos just like this, so I'll see you at the next one.
Hell yeah, gamers. Bro, guys, super huge shout out to Annie Recaps for that phenomenal summary. Obviously, we had to keep it YouTube appropriate, but there are some god tier moments in there. Fellas, if you know, you know. But yeah, no, that was so much fun. Thank you guys for watching with us. Go check out Eminence in Shadow. Do the whole thing. Do the follows. Do the subscriptions. Do that all. And I'll see you guys next time. Woo!